Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Council to order. Our clerk today will be Ms. Karen Robertson. I'd ask for a procedural motion to proceed in camera. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 19th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Karen Robertson. Tonight's regular meeting of Council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left for agenda items only. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question respecting an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. Members of Council have been granted the authority to join meetings electronically. We have Councillor Armstrong, who may be attending. She's got some health issues. She's here, good, and Councillor Manley as well. First item on the agenda is the introduction of late items. Ms. Robertson.
Thank you, Worship. We have three this evening. The first is under agenda item 10, the consent items. We're adding the Finance and Audit Committee meeting recommendations from December 14th. Removing agenda item 12C, the Design Advisory Panel key date calendar, as those dates are outlined in the panel's mandate and objectives, and the third is replacing the agenda item 13A, which is the bylaw, and it's just to correct the overlapping text on page 2.
Very good, thank you. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Mayor's report. I have a number of items to comment on tonight. And the first is to recognize what this year is for the Nanaimo Concert Band. It's the 150th milestone anniversary as one of Canada's oldest bands, and on December the 10th at their final concert before the Christmas break, I attended with Chris Schulberg of the City of Nanaimo staff, the man you want to consult about history and culture in our community, and presented to its members a commemorative coin from the City of Nanaimo, which was very well received. And I just want to say at this final meeting of council this year, congratulations to the band, to all its members. It is an amazing volunteer organization that has provided musical entertainment at things both sad and things both happy and things historical and things important and things sometimes not so important for 150 years to the citizens of this community, and they deserve our thanks. I want to repeat comments I made with respect to a statement the other week at the Monday night council meeting with respect to the operation of the Nanaimo area network of drug users at property on Nickel Street. Council fully supports and recognizes the 2016 ministerial order and the mandate of the Health Board to provide as many overdose prevention services as required in locations they deem necessary to respond to the health emergency. As NANDU is funded by the province and is supported by Island Health, the city calls upon the Island Health Authority and the province to take necessary steps to support the site and to mitigate the impact on the community. Council has directed staff to pursue compliance with municipal bylaws and to bring forward a report for the consideration of designating the property a nuisance under the Nuisance Abatement and Cost Recovery Bylaw 2019 number 7250. Back on October the 21st, it didn't get much play, but the City of Nanaimo was able to open the newly expanded Maffeo Sutton Playground. The entire playground is designed to be accessible and inclusive for children 2 to 12 years old. And it came about not just because of the good City of Nanaimo, but because of the generous donation of many sponsors. Phase 2 construction was funded by a grant of $413,300 from the Canada Community Revitalization Fund, administered by Pacifican, $30,000 from the Tired Stewardship of BC for the use of BC Recycled Towers, and as they have done on many other occasions, the sum of $26,000 was donated by the Nanaimo Lions Club, whose plaques appear all over this city, and that was for the purchase of the We Go swing. In addition, cedar florets or stumps were donated by Go-Go Cedar Products, an old family firm in our community. The new equipment includes Nanaimo's first wheelchair-accessible swing, the We Go swing. 1,709 recycled BC tires were used in the rubber surfacing and provides a safe and interactive play surface. The playground features a hand-carved cedar canoe playable art feature, which was created by Snuneymuxw First Nation master carver Noel Brown, and cedar logs salvaged from Bowen Park were incorporated into the playground for creative nature display. Something to celebrate in our community. Now, for those of you who do like celebrating, the City of Nanaimo Parks, Recreation and Culture Department is launching into 2023 with its first ever New Year's Day event held at Bevan Park on Sunday, January 1st from 12 to 5 p.m. The community is invited to start the new year by actively participating in a variety of activities that include swimming at Bevan Pool, skating at Frank Crane Arena, family skating, Cliff McNabb, stick and puck, a story walk on ice, arts and crafts, sports, bouncy castles, roaming entertainment, a food truck and concession will be on site. Tickets are available on the day of the event or in advance at Bevan Park Pool office. Tickets are only $10 or purchase a festive 5-pack for $35 for those of you who like to be careful with your money. And the tickets would make great stocking stuffers for everyone and encourage good family play. There are also many holiday activities available through Parks and Recreation. The Frosty Bucket Sticker Search is back this year, and that goes until December 22nd. Swimmers will want to check out the Snowball Swim at Bevan Pool, which is just passed, unfortunately, looking at my timing here. Santa will be visiting the arenas this year for 2 special skates with Santa. The first one will be held on Wednesday, December 21st, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Frank Crane Arena. And again on Thursday, December 22nd, 6:15 to 7:45 p.m. at the Nanaimo Ice Center. Frank Crane Arena is hosting its annual Winter Wonderland, where it will be transformed into a snow globe. These annual skating sessions take place on December 24th and again on December 26th to 30th, with a variety of community and business organizations sponsoring them. On January the 1st, the community, as I said, is invited to Activate 2023, and drop-in swimming, skating, and gymnasium sports will be available throughout the holiday season. And there are options for day camp at Bevan Social Center or hockey and skating camps at Cliff McNabb Arena. Please check out the City of Nanaimo website for the latest options and schedules. And I would be remiss, given that we've seen some snowfall, if I didn't say a few things about that. Crews were out throughout the weekend preparing roads out overnight last night, plowing priority routes. Plows will continue to be out as snow continues to fall. Drivers, be prepared for winter road conditions this week. Please, it doesn't come as a surprise. It's available on websites and the news and everything else that sends you messages electronically. Try and remember to slow down, give other vehicles lots of room, have patience for other drivers, make sure your vehicle is winter ready with winter rated tires, clear the outside of your vehicle of snow and ice, and pay extra attention for the pedestrians and cyclists. In particular, I want to note, in the last snowfall a few weeks ago, a driver stopped their vehicle in the middle of the island highway without warning because they had seen something, I assume. The snow flew off their roof down onto their windshield. They completely lacked visibility. They were jumping out trying to clean off their windshield in the middle of the island highway. So for those of you who want to drive around with too much snow on your roof, keep in mind that those things can happen. If you're walking and cycling, please make sure vehicles can see you by wearing a high visibility clothing and, if possible, a light. Pedestrians, please make sure vehicles have come to a complete stop before you cross the street. Please make sure to give city plows plenty of room to work, as they may make wide right turns or other unexpected movements to clear snow and spread salt. Remember that when you're parking your cars, please. You can find more information on the city's response to snow and ice on the website. With respect to garbage and recycling, sanitation crews are collecting scheduled garbage and recycling. Please check your Nanaimo Recycles app. If you haven't already, make sure to download the app for special messages in the event of a missed collection. Stay up to date with garbage and recycling collection. Parks and recreation facilities will remain open, as I said. And please use caution, however, in our parks. Trails, boardwalks, bridges, stairs, and playground equipment can become slippery and hazardous when there is snow and ice. Lots of good things are available on the city website. And I would remind everyone, because of a few incidents that have occurred recently, that you please give some thought to the parks and public works operations crews as they continue to clear and treat roads during winter weather. These folks work long hours around the clock to keep our main roads safe. You've heard me say many times that staff work to a priority system. Emergency routes and main transportation corridors are the highest priority. The 770 dead ends and cul-de-sacs are the lowest priority. While it's snowing, the focus remains on the priority routes. This can have the effect of delaying or canceling garbage and recycling collection, which will be communicated via the recycle apps, as I said. Please remember that calling city staff with raised voices won't make the snow stop or the plows get to you any faster. City workforce often perform heroic work, but they are not superheroes. They're your friends and neighbors, and they are serving their community. They deserve a safe workplace free from abusive language. This is winter in Canada. Shouldn't come as a surprise. where you can expect winter driving conditions. Winter conditions does not mean bare pavement. If you absolutely must go out, be prepared, drive to conditions and leave extra time for slippery roads and sidewalks. There is winter snowstorm warning for tonight and Tuesday with significant snowfall and dangerous driving conditions. We ask that you plan accordingly. And as I say, show the kind of respect and affection you would to any of your friends, neighbors, and family when it comes to dealing with city staff who are just doing their job and trying to deal with the complications that arise from winter weather. And finally, I just want to say, in this season, when many of our fellow citizens are not enjoying the comfort of either home or hearth or family or food, there are numerous organizations in our community to which you can donate money and support to provide for some kind of comfort, particularly during the coldest time of the year. This community is a generous and giving community in my experience, with numerous nonprofits providing all kinds of services, including staffing warming centers, delivering food, providing meals, collecting money for a number of causes to support families and children and everyone else. So I ask you to do that, to show your generosity. I have gone on longer tonight than I might, so forgive me for the long mayor's report. In terms of a rise and report, Ms. Robertson, we will provide that in the next meeting minutes. Thank you. We have no presentations. We have no committee minutes, except that they be received and no motions required. And we have a motion for the adoption of consent items, and noting from the addenda that the matters which have some issue around conflict have been deleted. So I'd ask for a motion for adoption of the consent items as set out. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. The next are separately addressed consent items. Councillor Eastmere, I'm going to ask you to absent yourself just for a minute. And Councillor Hemmens, we can address that consent item then separately. We don't need a formal motion, do we, Ms. Robertson, or do we?
You would need a motion for that one, but it should also just be noted that Councillor Eastmere did previously declare conflict,
yes,
as her partner works for the VI Short Film Festival Society.
Right. So Councillor Hemmens is moving, Councillor Perino is seconding. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. With respect to the Community Watershed Restoration Grant, Councillor Gesselbrock is on holiday and not with us tonight, so if someone, Councillor Eastmere is back. Someone cares to move that one. Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Now we do have delegations unrelated to agenda items. And the first is the importance of sustainable procurement guidelines that consider chemical ingredients. Matthew Cody, please. Welcome. If you can just introduce yourself, and you'll have 5 minutes. I will let you know when you're at 4 minutes.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mayor. For coming tonight.
Thanks. Hello, Mayor and Nanaimo City Councilors. I'm here today as an environmental professional to bring forth some recommendations to support the city with reducing the presence of harmful chemicals in the goods procured by the city of Nanaimo. My work as an environmental consultant has informed me of the scale of chemical pollution in our municipal sewers, and I believe sustainable procurement can be part of the solution with reducing the pollution in our homes, workplaces, and natural environment. So a brief outline for my presentation. I'll first introduce the problem, then get into the solutions and describe how sustainable procurement can be part of the solution, and then provide a series of recommendations for your consideration. So now on to the problem, which is the many problematic chemicals that are present in the goods in our homes, workplaces, and infrastructure. By problematic, I'm referring to those chemicals that are present health risks to humans and the environment. Many of these chemicals are persistent, meaning they are slow to break down or never break down. Some of these chemicals will be around basically till the earth falls into the sun. Some of these chemicals accumulate in the tissues of plants and animals, often increasing in concentration as we move up the food chain. And while there exists limited study of many of these chemicals are known to present toxic effects to life. These chemicals have many unique properties that have made them desirable ingredients to many of the products in our homes, workplaces, and infrastructure. And so my work as an environmental consultant involves assessing contaminants in municipal wastewater. These projects have informed me that there are many persistent bioaccumulative and toxic chemicals in our wastewater. Our wastewater treatment plants are not designed to treat these chemicals, and as a result, many of these chemicals are discharged to the aquatic receiving environments, in our case, the ocean, at elevated concentrations, and are presenting health risks to aquatic life. For example, municipal wastewater in BC has been identified as a key source of contaminants for the southern resident killer whale population. And the last point to convey is that given how many basically products that these chemicals are in, that it's no easy fix. Given there's no one point source, so there's basically super complex situation really. So while a daunting challenge, there are many solutions to improving the situation. And one of these solutions is reducing or eliminating problematic chemicals in the materials and goods procured or obtained through the procurement process. By choosing safer and less harmful products where possible, we can make our homes and workplaces healthier and also limit the quantity of these chemicals getting released to our lands and waters. The benefits of making smart and informed purchasing decisions includes obviously reducing pollution from the city of Nanaimo, and so this is one of the city of Nanaimo's sustainability priorities. This initiative will also help educate and inspire residents in other BC jurisdictions, and thereby creating a greater impact. And this initiative can also be a motivator for suppliers and manufacturers to transition to more sustainable goods and safer alternatives. And one of the very best selling features is that there are ample resources developed by a number of other governments to draw upon, and I don't believe significant time and resources are required for the city of Nanaimo to implement these measures. So a very brief look at what some other jurisdictions are doing. So the state of New York, for example, has developed procurement guidance for many goods, and the example I'm showing here is for flooring materials, for example. And as you can see on the right of the slide, they speak to many of the problematic chemicals that are in flooring materials. So I'd like to emphasize that this is just one example, and there are many strategies for considering chemical ingredients in the procurement process. I'd like to end my presentation with a few recommendations for the council to consider. So the first measure would be for the City of Nanaimo's sustainable procurement process to include measures for reducing or eliminating problematic chemicals in the materials and goods acquired through procurement. To achieve this, guidance materials should be developed to support procurement staff. And the last recommendation would be to support the development of a small volunteer-based working group to assist the city staff with this initiative. So that is my presentation. Thank you, Mayor and councilors, for your time, and I hope you're willing to take the challenge of pollution on from the procurement process and consider my recommendations.
Thank you very much. I was going to say, if you hadn't said those last few words, you would have been literally within seconds of your 5 minutes. I would have given you the award for
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, thank you.
the fall adherence to time limits. Any questions? I just want to say, Councillor Brown.
Hope you'll forgive, not a question. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. And we do have a social procurement policy that has been in development for some time, and I think this would potentially pair nicely with some further investigation, so thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Much appreciated, Mr. Goding.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Sorry, Councillor Manley has a question. He's on the screen. You'll have to come back again. You're more popular than you think.
That's all right. That's all right. Hello, Mr. Manley.
Thank you for your presentation. Through you, Your Worship. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Cody, you've identified that you've mentioned that you've identified some chemicals in our wastewater system, and I'm just wondering what and Councillor Brown has identified that we do have a social sustainable procurement program. What kind of items would we be using that would end up in our wastewater that and how do we identify what we need to avoid, or are we looking for products that clearly identify that they don't contain persistent pollutants?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are ultimately many products like so the main problem chemicals from my perspective are per and polyfluoroalkylated substances, PFAS, which most people have probably heard of by now. There's movies about these chemicals. There's chlorinated alkanes and polybromated diphenyl ethers. So these are flame resistant chemicals that are basically not intended to degrade, and so they're present in a lot of our home textiles like furniture and carpet. PFAS is present in a lot of our food packaging materials. So landfill leachate, for example, is a key source of PFAS materials. So if you're making efforts to reduce PFAS in a lot of the basically food packaging materials, one example I can think of is the rubber crumb that the mayor introduced earlier. So that's a source of contaminants for some PAHs that are particularly challenging for coho salmon. So basically, these chemicals are in so many sources that it's no small feat. And so that's kind of where we're required to, maybe even before initiating a procurement process, I think there could be energy devoted to looking at some of the risks associated with some of these products. But then when a green light has been made to procure some goods, we can actually look at the materials to be acquired and then just initially do a cursory review of, are there known contaminants in these materials? And then evaluate if there are safer alternatives. And so that's a big challenge that, there aren't necessarily safer alternatives in many cases. And in that case, there's not much we can do. But when there is a safer alternative, I think that's where we should be focusing our energies.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I think you're fine now. Thank you very much. The next delegation is respecting the Tiny Home Project, and it's Joanne Dahlman. And if I've mispronounced that, tell me, please.
It's Dahlman.
Dahlman. Very good. Welcome and good evening.
Thank you for letting me speak in front of you today. On the screen is the project that I'll be talking about, the Tiny Home Project, and this is the website that I put together to provide some information.
Tip the mic more towards your...
Oh, okay. And this is the website to provide more information in relation to the project. It's not moving here. What do I do here to get it to go forward? Oh, here we are. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm a retired registered nurse. I have advanced yoga teacher training, and I'm also an artist. I worked in the NICU for 20 years and with veterans. I moved to Nanaimo in February 22, and in May 22, I had an experience when I was walking downtown, and I ran into a 40-plus group of grocery-wielding homeless people in the downtown core, and I was trying to get to the art store, and I tried 3 different routes, and I couldn't get by this group of people, and finally I just gave up and went home. I was just too afraid to walk, within this group here, and this galvanized me to start looking into this project. I sent letters to the Nanaimo Council, so you've all received letters from me, to MLAs, MPs, business associations, and anyone I thought might be interested in this project. I've had meeting with housing expert John Horn, a community program leader Peter Sinclair of Loaves and Fishes. I've spoken with the director of the Salvation Army, Bern Mueller, politician MLA Adam Walker, and staff at the Enhanced Harm Reduction Clinic, notably Jeffrey Shepard, who's the lead in this department. Oh, I'm supposed to be going forward here. The unhoused. What I started to learn about the unhoused is that they're a really diverse group. They are relatives who've come to stay because they've lost their homes. They're couch surfers. They're individuals living in their tents. They're people living in their cars and vans. There are women and children escaping violence, and they are mentally ill people and addicted to people who are addicted to alcohol and drugs. I want to just briefly philosophically talk about the whole nature-nurture thing. I think when we consider human psychology, we need to consider not only nature and nurture, but rather nature-nurture choice. We make choices every day, and those choices determine our future just as much as the genes we've inherited and the guardians who have raised us, or the parents. And we need to take responsibility. Laws exist in our society to bring order to our lives, to allow us to live peacefully with each other, and when we flout those laws, we are arrested and brought to court, and they need to determine what our punishment will be. Being homeless is no excuse for avoiding prosecution, especially in relation to violent or destructive behavior. However, there are alternatives to sending someone with mental illness or addiction-fueled violent behavior to jail. They could be given the choice of seeking inpatient mental health and/or addiction therapy and counseling. This kind of approach is a win-win situation for everyone. In relation to homelessness, it's far more expensive or far less expensive to provide housing, food, counseling, mental health support, and addiction therapy to an individual who requires it than turning a blind eye to the situation. It costs the taxpayer anywhere from $12,000 to $154,000 or more for an unsheltered person because of hospital visits, paramedics, police, social services, court, and shelter. The Tiny Home Project, and I can't go into the details because I have 5 minutes, but it's a 4-part plan, and it deals with phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, starting off with intake in phase 1, small cabins, phase 2 being small cabins, and gradually moving up to the point where the individual can rent a tiny modular home, or even possibly in the future purchasing a tiny modular home. And so I think it would be a great idea for Nanaimo to experiment in the idea of building tiny modular homes in communities.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Oh, okay. Funding to support this project will still need to be sought. Education classes and whatnot would be provided for the individuals. Support for addiction should be provided. There are essentially 3 main approaches to dealing with addiction: detoxification and rehabilitation, methadone, Suboxone, and Vivitrol used to treat the drug dependence, and harm reduction or safe supply of opioids. It's really important to disconnect the individual from the toxic drug street trade, regardless of which route he or she chooses. There are 2 books that helped me to gather some background in this. One was Ragged Company by Richard Wagamese, and San Francisco, a book by Michael Schellenberger, Why Progressives Ruin Cities. And it's just like an amazing book with all kinds of data and studies. There, but for the grace of God, go I. I mean, we or universe or divine or whatever. So in conclusion, we need to think in terms of compassion and responsibility. Housing the homeless involves a complex balancing of many factors, but the ultimate goal is to provide a safe and healthy situation for the individual, the tiny community they live in, and the wider community which surrounds them. In addition, consideration for the risks taken by our police force, the RCMP, in maintaining law and order in our community should be considered too. It is important to think about all levels of our social network and provide housing which is welcome for everyone.
If you could wrap up, please.
The request is for the council to approve this project in principle and to commit to working with the province to take this to the next step.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino has a question.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And I'm just wondering, could you give us a copy of your PowerPoint, just because we're just reading it from here, and just would like to see it up close if you could pass it on to staff.
I have it on a memory stick. Should I just give it to the people here?
That would be great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Ms. Robertson?
It was provided.
Actually, I did provide it to the council too on Friday.
We'll make sure that it gets circulated.
Okay, we'll get it circulated. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you. Councillor Manley and Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, thank you, Ms. Dahlman, for your presentation. I'm curious if you visited the sites in Duncan, where they've successfully put together, I think, 3 of these in the city of Duncan. They're small communities. I was there when John Horn was overseeing the installation of 12 sleeping cabins in a parking lot. They initially started with a number of tents under market tents.
Yes, I'm familiar with the project, and I did watch your video when they were opening up the project that day.
Did you go and visit yourself?
I did not go visit myself. I haven't had a chance to either visit the Victoria tiny village, the tiny town, or Duncan, It Takes a Village. I haven't had a chance to do that, but I have researched both of them, and I've talked to Lisa Helps, who is the former mayor of Victoria, just today, and I hope to go down to Duncan and take a look around there as well.
We have a considerable homeless population in Nanaimo, and it would take about 50 or 60 of these small little tiny towns to accommodate everybody. But I do think that there's, the possibility of trying to do this, and there are people that are living in cars in our community. There are people that are just trying to camp, and they're not necessarily connected with the people you had trouble or you were worried about navigating through on your way to the art store. Through you, Your Worship, to staff, I'm wondering if staff have looked at the situation in Duncan, at the tiny cabins in Duncan, and if there's the possibility of doing this in Nanaimo, if there are parking lots or areas in the city where we could perhaps set up these tiny houses in our community.
Phase 1 here is the cabin they used in Duncan.
Yeah.
Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Worship. So if the question is the city or staff aware, certainly aware of what other communities are doing. We have some experience with housing with people in modular homes and working with BC Housing. Haven't pursued a project like this recently, but if council wanted us to report back, certainly be happy to do that if there was a council motion to do so.
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that staff identify some options for places where people can camp legally, safely in the community.
Might I suggest that we get through the questions first, so before we get to motions? Councillor Armstrong has a question, so does Councillor Hemmons.
Sure.
Thank you. I just did want to say that the previous council, we did look at this very seriously, and the decision was made to go with the modular units because we could house 60 people versus housing 5, and especially with the cost of land value. So it was seriously looked at by previous councils, but again, our decision was to go with housing more people than less people, because we only have a certain amount of city land available. Thank you.
And Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Dahlman, for coming tonight. BC Housing has indicated that they're not interested in funding initiatives like this, and we could have a long conversation about why that is, but I think Councillor Armstrong just noted we did look at this, and I'm not against looking at it again, but BC Housing is not a likely funder. And so I guess my question would be for you is, do you see this as something the community can take on? Like if the province isn't going to be there with dollars, do we have other options?
Well, apparently, I was talking to Lisa Helps today, and she was saying that what happened with their project, which is a tiny town, and it had 30 units that were put together to provide for the homeless that were in a tent camp. The community got together and put forward $500,000 in order to do the building of the units, and then the province took over in terms of running the units, and they have a lot of supports there, even just to staff as well as security 24/7 in this project to make sure that there's not any problems within the tiny community and also within the community at large, which has definitely been a problem in Nanaimo in the past, because without adequate supports, it can be devastating for a community.
Thank you very much. Any further questions to the delegation? Not seeing any. Thank you. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Mr. Lindsay, any further comment?
No, I think the other councillors have done a good job of reminding everyone that we previously did look at this. There was a motion for council to investigate it. In the end, council of the day elected not to proceed, but if this council wishes to reconsider that, we could certainly bring back a report if that was the direction.
Your Worship, if you wanted, if I may, through to you, we are having a housing workshop in January, I think it is, and we could bring back those reports for your information as one of the agenda items.
Councillor Manley, I think that would probably be a useful approach rather than a motion right now, if you're agreeable to that. Although you're
Sure.
welcome to bring forward your motion.
I would be interested in seeing those reports. I definitely think that what we need to do is find places that are safe for some people to camp or to park vehicles or to be in this community. Because there are, homeless people in our community that don't fit the profile of what most citizens think of as the unhoused population, and those people need safe places to be. They need to be able to set up shelters, to remain in shelters, and to be warm and dry, because we just do not have enough shelter spaces in this community. And right now we're in a cold snap, and it's not humane the way that people are living on our streets. So I'll leave it at that. I'll look forward to reading these reports, and I'd invite staff to send them to me. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. We're on to reports, and the first is A, 2023-2027 Financial Plan Bylaw. Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So
Thank
the
you, Ms.
draft,
Lindsay.
the draft financial plan that was presented to the Finance and Audit Committee at the budget sessions held at the end of November, beginning of December, has been updated with the changes Council approved at those sessions. So the updated projected property tax increase is 1% for asset management and a 6.3% increase for general property taxes, bringing the total to 7.3%. The projected user fee increases are 4% for sanitary sewer user fees, 5% for water user fees, and 2.3% for sanitary user fee or sanitation user fees. So the sanitary sewer and water fee increases are based on the recommendations that were listed in the utility rate review report that was presented to the Finance and Audit Committee meetings. So this means that the projected impact on a typical home in Nanaimo will be an increase of $179 for municipal taxes, or $220 when you include taxes and all user rate fee increases. So the financial plan bylaw includes a number of initiatives that support the new city plan, and many of these changes relate to public safety and contribute to a healthy Nanaimo. So the public and community safety that was enhanced was the addition of 40 new firefighters, 20 in 2023, and an additional 20 in 2025, along with the required fire vehicles to support them. 3 RCMP officers were added in 2023, and that was part of the 15 officers added at 3 per year starting in 2020. And 4 new police support service positions were added in 2023 to support these RCMP members. And that was part of the 15 positions that were added over 5 years, starting in 2022 through the police resourcing plan that was done. And of course, this is the first full year costing of the new community safety officers and the community clean teams. So the report does highlight several changes that relate to the other 4 areas of the city plan. Over the coming months, the finance staff will be busy working on updating the financial plan with changes to the estimates and any additional direction provided by council. And the final financial plan must be adopted before May 15th, and staff will be back in April to provide council an opportunity to review and amend the bylaw before the deadline. So that, in a nutshell, is the financial plan bylaw, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Mercer? If not, Councillor Himmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that Financial Plan Bylaw 2022, number 7359, to confirm and adopt the 2023 to 2027 financial plan pass first reading.
I have a seconder, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Councillor Himmons.
I move that Financial Plan Bylaw 2022, number 7359, pass second reading.
We have a seconder, Councillor Thorpe. Discussion. This is the time to explain why you're voting one way or t'other. Councillor Thorpe, and then Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I do appreciate the opportunity to have a quick word. I will be supporting this financial plan bylaw. I'm sure a number of people watching or listening are disappointed that our tax hike at this point is 7.3%, recognizing that that is not final. I quite honestly had hoped we would be able to bring forward a lower tax increase this year. But the city, like all individuals in our community, has been affected by the rampant inflation that we've experienced. So as Ms. Mercer explained, we have a 1% levy for infrastructure repairs and upgrades, which I totally support. Usually we factor in an inflation rate of maybe between 2 and 3% in recent years. This year, inflation was running between 6 and 8%. So for the city to provide the same level of service that our citizens expect and deserve, it simply just costs us more. And I guess my hope was that we could find ways of reducing that. I have not seen it, and we have looked. The other increase to our tax levy was due to the additional hiring in the fire rescue department, which I totally support as our city is growing very rapidly, and we were already, I think, understaffed in that very important department. So I'm sorry to the public that we can't get it lower, or we haven't to this point, but I do support this. I think it's reasonable considering the economic climate that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Perino, then Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Worship. A question and then a comment through you to Ms. Mercer. I'm just, so we come back to this in April. I get, my struggle is, this is very tough to pass this for me. I find this, I get all of the reasons why. I certainly support the reasons that why we are increasing the staff for the fire department, the police, and the, you know, I get it all. It's an important time to do this, but a 7.3 is, it is really difficult, particularly on young families as well as our seniors who are on fixed incomes. So I'm very concerned about that. So just walk me through the process. We will look at this again in April in hopes that could it come down? Is there something that may come forward at that time to help it to come down? Because I'm hoping for a, you know, something.
Miracle?
Yeah. I guess for me, at this point, I'm struggling with, yes, I agree with the 1% for asset management. Do I think it's important that maybe we let it go this year because of inflation? Yeah, I think we should probably let it go this year. That's me. You know, that's my opinion. I wish we'd taken some of the reserves that we talked about, putting it and reducing the tax some more. I'm just struggling with, it's just such a high tax rate that I'm struggling. So just tell me, you know where I'm getting. Is there going to be another opportunity to possibly see this lower before April?
So through your worship, yes, we do come back in April, and so estimates for things like growth, investment income, we will be relooking at those. We'll know our growth number in March. We'll have another look at our investment income because interest rates have been rising and we are getting better rates of return on our investments. So we know we're going to have a bit more revenue from there, most likely. Of course, there's all kinds of estimates that we will be looking at again before we bring it back to you in April. But there are other, you know, so there are opportunities for this to come in lower, but there are also, you know, things like contract negotiations and things like that can put upwards pressure on things as well. So while there are opportunities to bring it down, you know, there are also estimates that could increase as well. So at this point, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do know, I do have an idea that it may come down a little bit just due to the two items that I've just mentioned.
So maybe there's something small miracle in there. And I just want to say for my comments, you know, I have to say, thank you so much for spending time with me to personally go over, because I couldn't understand where it came from, and it was shocking to see the number. We literally got elected and walked into a 6.2 before we did any staff increases, particularly for the fire department. So that for me was absolutely shocking. So I really appreciate the help that you gave me. And as sickened as I am, I'll support this now, but I'm not so sure about April. We'll see how it goes. I'm hoping for some changes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Perino. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be supporting this at this time. I echo some of the things that Councillor Perino has highlighted. You know, coming straight out of an election and straight into the budget, it's hard to get a grasp on everything. But I do understand that low taxes over many years has left us with a structural deficit, and we've had sprawl in this community. I'm just hearing, you know, we have 770 cul-de-sacs or dead-end streets where people are demanding better snow removal services. That kind of urban structure, infrastructure is expensive. We have people that are upset about urban density, but the facts are that urban sprawl is very expensive, and you pay for those kind of things with DCC costs 25 years ago, and now that infrastructure needs to be renewed, and that's an expensive proposition. We also have a lot of demands for public safety, and I see that this previous council has put money into public safety with new police officers and community safety officers, and hearing from the firefighters who are, you know, the front line for us in climate change, when we've been extremely lucky in this community not to have wildfires around the city of Nanaimo, like other communities have in British Columbia or in the Western United States. But you know, I fear that sometime our time will come. And so I think that investing in firefighters to protect our community in the face of climate change is an important investment. And so we are making investments that previous councils have not made. And it's important, and it's unfortunate that that means hefty tax increases, but I do look forward to taking a deeper dive as we go forward and hearing what the revenue numbers are actually going to be looking like, to see you know, what we might be able to do with revenue and expenses as we move forward in this process. But I thank staff for doing this work and for educating us on this process, and I will be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I certainly appreciate everything that members of council have had to say, and particularly for thanking Ms. Mercer and her staff and department for the assistance in this. This is a budget that focuses on public safety. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about that. It's a 7.3% tax increase proposed. 1% is asset management. One only has to look to the community of Prince Rupert, I believe, to see what happens when you don't look after your assets. If you have water mains burst or pipes burst or water not get delivered, you can face real community disaster. The 1% increase is good public policy. Of the remaining 6.3%, 3.6% of that is related directly to public safety, whether it's firefighters, community safety officers, budgets related to vandalism, all of those things. That was how shall I say, that was the cry from the community. This is council responding. And I don't mean cheekily. Sometimes you get what you ask for and you realize you don't want it, but the truth is that's what we're doing. And stepping back a moment, as Ms. Mercer's pointed out, on a typical home, $179 increase in general taxes. And a typical home is basically your average home. Some people will pay considerably more. There's no question. Some people will pay less. When you see your BC assessment notices, if you think your value is really out of line with neighboring houses, then appeal it. But this is the price we pay for living in a community that is seeing rapid growth. Others will argue that, well, you've got a 2% growth rate, you'll get a 2% increase in tax revenue. It doesn't work like that. If Grandma from Kelowna moves into the Brown's house, for example, I don't think he's got Grandma living with him, but if she does, Grandma wants city services, but there's no new house. There's no new source of tax revenue. That's a reality. If people have children and they live in the same accommodation, or students crowd together in one house, we don't get increased taxes from that house because there's 10 students living in the house or 3 students living in the house. So it isn't a lockstep proposition. What we do know is that this community is growing at the rate of 2% a year. What that means is there is that demand for services without question whether or not there's an increase in the sources of tax revenue. So when you get down to it, we're really talking about a 3.7% tax increase to deal with everything else other than public safety and asset management. I appreciate the frustration that this creates for some people, and I appreciate the frustration that, you know, and I'm not picking on Councillor Perino when I say this, but, you know, she campaigned hoping that she would be able to hold the line on taxes by herself. But like King Canute, the overwhelming needs of this community trump every one of us, and they should. That is what creating community is all about. I appreciate this will generate some difficulties for some folks, but as Councillor Thorpe has pointed out, we are subject to a fairly significantly high period of inflation. For some of us who remember the early 70s, this ain't bad, folks. This ain't bad. That was real inflation. Or for those of us who saw house prices virtually double in a couple of years and then collapse again in the late 70s, early 80s, that was pretty grim. What we're facing here, though, is not just a question of what I will call high inflation, because the inflation that the city has to pay for, so to speak, is different. We don't, as I've said every year, I think at tax time, the city in Nanaimo itself does not buy a lot of groceries. They're going through the roof, and I acknowledge the challenges that creates for families. But if you think groceries are going through the roof, look at the price of concrete, look at the price of steel, look at the price of lumber, look at the cost of the contracts we put out to build and provide those very services that every one of us wants to have. Whether you're buying a new snowplow, a new vehicle, whether you're ensuring that a contractor can put a water line in someplace or repair something, that rate of inflation is much higher. So at the end of the day, nobody's thrilled around this table to have a 7.3% tax increase. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could win lotteries for the city and we have no tax increases, but it's not realistic. What this is a realistic budget that focuses on public safety. It is what the public wants, it is what the community needs. And so we are meeting the needs of the community, and it is for those reasons that I will support this budget as prepared, and we'll see in the spring if some miracles occur, but as much as we approach the Christmas season, the miracle birth, I'm not convinced we're going to see a miracle on the tax front. Perhaps we will, but in the meantime, unless I've inspired anyone else to say something, all those in favor? Any opposed? None? Unanimous? Councillor Hemmens, please.
I move that Financial Plan Bylaw 2022, number 7359, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Council. And the next is 12B, 507 Milton Street, amendment of project under the Revitalization Tax Exemption Bylaw. Mr. Corson, welcome and good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship. So staff are seeking Council's direction to amend an existing tax exemption agreement for a property at 507 Milton Street. This is the property on the corner of Milton and Albert that's been under construction for a bit. There's 27 units as part of this project. The project did start just during the pandemic, and as you can imagine, the owner and developer has had difficulty securing labor and materials over this time, and he's asked that we amend the agreement, the occupancy date from December 31st of this year to June 30th of next year of 2023. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corson. Any questions? I think everyone's had a chance to read the material. Councillor Hemmens.
I'll make the recommended motion.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Brown. Motion carries. Thank you. On to 12D, bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw, storm sewer regulation fine schedule. Now there's a title that rolls off your tongue. Glad I'm not slurring my words anymore tonight. Ms. Robertson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under the bylaw section of tonight's agenda, Council will be considering adoption of the storm sewer regulation and fee bylaw number 7351. And should the bylaw be adopted, Council will need to amend the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw to establish fines for violations against the regulatory bylaw. The details of the fine system are outlined in the staff report, and the fines were established by the manager of bylaw enforcement in conjunction with the engineering staff who oversee the regulation of the bylaw. So staff is seeking council support in giving the bylaws first 3 readings.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Hemmens, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that bylaw notice enforcement bylaw 2022 number 7159.18 to assign fees for violations associated with the storm sewer regulation and fee bylaw pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Hemmens.
I move that bylaw notice enforcement bylaw 2022 number 7159.18 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Eastmere. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I move that bylaw notice enforcement bylaw 2022 number 7159.18 pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to bylaws, 13A, the Storm Sewer Regulation and Fee Bylaw 2022, number 7351. Councillor Hemmens.
Thank you. I move that Storm Sewer Regulation and Fee Bylaw 2022, number 7351, a bylaw to regulate and collect fees and fines for the storm sewer system service be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. 13B, Sewer Regulation and Charges Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2496.35.
I move that Sewer Regulation and Charge Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2496.35, a bylaw to set the 2023 rates for sanitary sewer be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. 13C, Southwest Bulk Water Rate Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7099.11.
I move that Southwest Water Bulk Rate Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7099.11, a bylaw to set the 2023 bulk water rate for Southwest Extension be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. 13D, Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7128.14.
I move that Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7128.14, a bylaw to set the solid waste collection rates for 2023 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Next is 13E, User Fee Subsidies Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7095.04.
Thank you. I move that User Fee Subsidies Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7095.04, a bylaw to set the 2023 thresholds for user fee subsidies be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. 13F, Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7004.18.
Thank you. I move that Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7004.18, a bylaw to set the water rates for 2023 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And finally, G, Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 4500.203.
Thank you. I move that Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 7004.18, a bylaw to set the water rates for 2023 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Yeah, there's something.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You cited the correct bylaw number, but in the annotated, the wrong wording for water rates was inserted. It's a zoning bylaw, so I will find the page. What's that? It's on the screen? Okay, there we go. To rezone 5378 Rutherford Road.
Would you like me to read?
Yeah.
Okay. I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2022, number 4500.203 to rezone 5378 Rutherford Road from single dwelling residential R1 to low density residential R6 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. No notices of motion. No other business. No question period. Well, Council, before I ask for motion for adjournment, I just, on behalf of Council to all of staff, want to say thank you for another year of work on behalf of the citizens of Nanaimo. In particular, through the holidays, I hope you all get some time with family and pay particular thanks to those members of staff who will be working through the holidays in various capacities, sometimes in inclement weather and doing overtime and missing their warm turkey and hearth. A particular thanks to them, or those who will be providing the support and services for people seeking entertainment and enjoyment with their families through the holidays. So, Merry Christmas, everyone, and thank you. A motion for adjournment. Moved Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Eastermere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.